Putting it all together, lesson planning. Throughout the 4 sessions, we have looked closely at how to make meaning from complex text, how to enhance learning through collaborative conversations, and how to build and use academic language in reading, discussion, and writing. As you watch this following video about planning a lesson on identifying main ideas and developing arguments, think about and take notes on page 75 of your handbook, responding to the following questions. How does Mr. Hanafi integrate the different Common Core standards into this lesson? What are some of the varied opportunities for student discussion throughout the lesson? And how does Mr. Hanafi design activities that scaffold student learning? I'm going to go ahead and show you this video right now, and if you can go ahead and write your notes on page 75. After the video, we'll go ahead and stop, take a break, and you can discuss your responses with your colleagues.
Before you teach, tell me a little bit about your lesson, kind of your goals and objectives, the standards you're going to be focusing on.
Okay, well, we've got 2 days of lessons here, and it's really starting and centering on a reading standard about being able to identify the central idea in a text, and not just to be able to do that, but to be able to connect specific elements of the text and show how they develop or reveal that main idea. So what kids will be doing is they've come in having read the text, Letter from Birmingham Jail, and they've used one reading strategy altogether called thinking notes or metacognitive markers. So they'll be able to track their own reactions. Then we'll do a close reading exercise in class. I'll have different groups actually doing some differentiated tasks to help them identify some other really important elements of what they see in there. And they'll also be considering what is that central idea. So they'll sort of come up with an initial draft, and as they move through the close reading process, they'll be coming up with a continually more refined version of what that central idea is, but have to be able to explain where in the text you see that being developed.
Tell me a little bit about the challenges you faced in planning a class that would address these standards in particular.
Well, I think one thing that's important when planning using the standards is that you can't just look at one set. So you can't just say, today I'm going to have some writing standards or some reading standards or some speaking and listening. So what you'll see is a strong emphasis, especially on the first day, on a reading standard that calls on students to identify the central idea, but to be able to connect that to specific text elements and understand how those help develop or reveal the central idea. You'll also see a lot of work on speaking and listening standards about presentations, about presenting reliable information and factual information, about the way that students should interact during a conversation, and about how to follow set protocols. And then finally, they'll be moving towards an argumentative writing piece that will really tie into those writing standards, and we'll talk about how to have a central claim and how to back that up with effective evidence.
Okay, so you're really recognizing that this letter from a Birmingham jail is a dense text, and kids really need to unpack it. They don't need to gloss over kind of big, large main ideas, but they really want to narrow down kind of on the language in the letter itself.
Right, so you'll see groups present their findings and share them with each other. And then actually on day 2, we'll continue to work our way through the text, and we'll do a Socratic seminar. We'll use a little variation on it called the fishbowl with, there's a lot of turn and talk with an inner and outer ring. And the kids will have come in creating their own levels of questions. We'll be concentrating on level 2, drawing inference from the text, and level 3, making universal connections. And so that there'll be a lot of student-centered questioning and conversation going on to really help make sure that they have a very strong understanding of the text before they move to a writing process assignment.
So on that second day then, the Socratic seminar, what are some of the key elements you're going to be looking for?
Well, in any Socratic seminar, you want to have strong participation from students, and that includes strong listening. So even though they may not be speaking at this time, you want to be able to track and know that they're reacting to something, maybe jotting down some notes, thinking about maybe what they're hearing and how that might help them with a writing task later. And then by having this inner and outer circle, we'll have groups of partners all the way through. And so we'll continually have these turn and talk moments where they'll be working together as a team to come up with more ideas for what they want to share.
So tell me a little bit about the text and how they will use the text during that Socratic seminar.
Sure. So the text is a slightly shortened version of King's letter from Birmingham jail. So we've worked on some of the context to understand what was going on in the civil rights movement at the time. And they're really going to be looking at how it is just an amazing piece of persuasive writing that doesn't just say I'm right, you're wrong, but draws in an outside audience that was refuting a lot of King's ideas. And so they'll really be looking at the way that he makes a great case for what he's doing, not just to the 8 clergymen that he was directly responding to, but to that full open audience of all of us who are continuing to read the letter today.
So tell me a little bit about the writing that they're going to do. You said it's argumentative, so it fits in that particular set of standards related to argumentative writing, but what specifically are they going to be doing?
So they're going to be considering to what extent King's ideas are still relevant today. And so they'll be encouraged to consider what are certain occasions that are going on in the world, whether that's the Arab Spring or whether that are things that are going on in the United States, where people may be breaking laws or feeling that they have the right to break unjust laws. And so we'll be talking about their own take on that. So, where do you see his writing still being relevant today? And they'll be doing that actually in the form of a blog. I think one of the other challenges for me personally was Writing Standard 6 really calls on us to step up our game about writing for the 21st century. And that means writing on the web, publishing, taking advantage of all the sort of fluid ways that we can publish and react to text on the internet. So they'll be writing a blog entry with their own opinion, and then they'll also be required to give some really high quality feedback in the comments section to at least 2 other editorials.
So let's talk a little bit about the outcomes. How are you going to know that the students address the standards that they've been working on, that they've learned them?
Well, I think minute by minute you're going to see a lot of back and forth conversation that's going to tap into some of that speaking and learning. You're going to see students sharing ideas when working in groups, maybe in a positive way, even, arguing back and forth a little bit, defending their own ideas. But they're going to be relying on protocols to get new takes on some of those ideas from other people. It's going to be important that they develop their own ideas through discussion. As far as the reading, you're going to see them producing a sort of a one-slide PowerPoint where you're going to see that explicit connection between textual elements and the overall meaning, where they're going to be having to really talk about how they were able to make that sort of connection. And then in the writing, I think that you're going to see there's a real challenge there when you move to this sort of internet-based writing, that you still want to keep it high-quality writing and that it's not just something that's casual. But what you're going to see is the fact that they took the time to really develop their own ideas on this text over, this long period of time. And I think you'll really find that there'll be a strong sense of not just comprehension, but application of that text to new ideas.
Well, good luck, TJ. Have a great class.
Thanks.
Okay, so please pause the video while you respond to the questions and then share your answers with a partner. All right, sorry about the technical difficulty there. Anyway, at this time, I'd like you to pause the video while you review the language of the other text types on page 76 of your handbook. After you've read through that, please discuss how will understanding how a certain type of text works assist in comprehension of the text and help students replicate the genre in their own writing for different purposes. Please pause the video while you discuss. And now it's time for reflection. Our big idea, writing is the use of language as an expression of students' thinking and learning, has now been explored in many ways throughout our sessions. What I'd like you to do is go to page 77 and respond to these questions. What have you learned about the relationship between the skills needed to read complex texts, engage in collaborative conversations, and use academic language, and students' ability to express themselves effectively in writing? How will you apply what you have learned in your classroom? Thank you so much. Please take this time to reflect and then share with your colleagues.